One of 5 guards to win Defensive Player of the Year, one of 4 players to record a quadruple-double, and the first most improved player in NBA history. Alvin Robertson has one of the most individually decorated careers of a player no one talks about anymore. Never a great shooter, Robertson's offense came from his ability to find the open man and his high motor when driving to the hoop or swooping in for a putback bucket, as he was one of the best rebounding guards of all time. But his real value came in his defense, as he was one of the most relentless defenders to ever step foot on an NBA court. With an uncanny ability to predict the pass before it was thrown, he still holds numerous steal records, including the highest career average at nearly 2.7 per game, and he would average at least 3 steals per game in half the seasons he played. But he's yet another member of the '84 draft that no one talks about anymore after the impact Jordan, Olajuwon, Barkley, and Stockton had. However, the biggest knock to his playing career was that he didn't win. He finished with a winning record just twice, made 4 playoff appearances, and could never make it out of the first round. And over the course of his playing career and afterwards, his reputation was tarnished with bad decisions and false accusations. But his time on the court is one of the most slept on careers of all time. So today's episode is going to look at that career. Let's jog your memory. An Ohio native, Alvin Robertson attended Barberton High School, where he would grow from 5'8" to 6'2" between his sophomore and junior seasons. Then as a senior, he would average 19 points and 14 rebounds, while leading the Magics to a 22-2 record. Academic issues would lead to Robertson spending his freshman season at Crowder College, where he'd average 18 points and 8 rebounds, and he would then accept an offer to play for Hall of Fame coach Eddie Sutton at Arkansas, as Robertson's tough defense-first play style was exactly what Sutton looked for, and this led to a dominant defensive backcourt with Robertson and fellow future NBAer Darrell Walker. Robertson was next in line in a history of great defensive Razorback guards, as future 2-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year Sidney Moncrief had left after the '79 season, but was replaced by the aforementioned Walker. So Robertson would join a Razorbacks team led by Walker, Joe Klein, and Tony Brown. Robertson would get less than 18 minutes per game this year, and he would average less than 8 points. But his defense would still help the team to a 21-5 regular season record and a conference championship, as they would defeat the Phi Slamma Jamma Houston Cougars behind Robertson's team-high 23 points. The NCAA tournament would begin with a matchup versus Kansas State, but the Razorbacks would lose, as Robertson had just 6 points, but would still have 3 steals, and his regular season saw him average about 7.5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.5 steals per game. Robertson would get 15 more minutes per game during the '83 season and would respond by finishing second on the team in scoring, as well as being first in assists and steals. However, Robertson was prone to foul trouble, as he would lead the team with 109 fouls and would foul out of 7 games. But these were bound to come with how hard Robertson would hound defenders, as he and Walker were an elite defensive backcourt, and according to Walker, there were times when opposing guards couldn't even get across half court. The team would start 14-0, reaching number 4 in the national rankings, before losing to Houston, and overall would go 25-2 for the regular season, with both losses coming against Houston. They would lose to TCU in the conference tournament semifinals, and would enter the NCAA tournament as a 4 seed, where they would defeat Purdue in the round of 32, behind a great game from Robertson. He would put up a game-high 26 on over 52% shooting, along with 6 boards and 8 steals, as Arkansas advanced to the Sweet 16 versus Louisville. This would be a much worse showing for Robertson, as although he had 5 steals, he would also have 6 turnovers and just 4 points, as the Razorbacks lost. And for his junior season, Robertson averaged about 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 3.1 steals per game. Walker had left for the NBA going into the '84 season, leaving Robertson and Klein as the team's leaders, and they would both respond with great seasons, with Robertson finishing second on the team in scoring and rebounding, while finishing first in assists and steals. But his fouls continued to be a problem, as he averaged nearly 4 per game, and would foul out of 6 of the first 21 games of the year. Arkansas had taken a step back from the year before, as they were unranked, sitting at 18-4 going into a February 12th matchup versus North Carolina, where they would stun the top-ranked Tar Heels led by Michael Jordan, when they won by a single point, ending their undefeated season in a game which saw Robertson dish out 10 assists. They would end another streak in the final game of the year, when they defeated Houston to end their 39-game conference winning streak. However, Houston would avenge the loss a week later in the conference championship game, The 25-6 Razorbacks would enter the tournament as a 2 seed, but get knocked out in the first round for the second time in 3 years, as they lost to Virginia. The game went to OT after Robertson missed a game-winning shot, and this was pre-NCAA shot clock era, so after Virginia won the tip in overtime, they would extend their first possession to take 2 minutes and 13 seconds off the clock, before calling a timeout, and then 12 seconds after coming out of the timeout, they just turned it over. And Virginia would only outscore Arkansas 4 points to 2 in the OT period, as Robertson would miss another game-tying shot at the buzzer. And for the regular season, Robertson would average about 15.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals per game. Next stop was the NBA draft, and the legendary '84 draft is remembered for future all-time greats like Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, and Charles Barkley, all coming off the board within the first 5 selections. But just 2 picks after Barkley, Robertson would hear his name called, when San Antonio selected him 7th overall, 10 picks before future Hall of Famer John Stockton. And Robertson looked like a top 10 pick over the summer, playing for the '84 US Olympic team, as they would win the gold medal, and he would also be the team's leading scorer during an exhibition game versus the current stars of the NBA. The Spurs had been an underachieving team for over a decade, initially beginning in the ABA before merging with the NBA in the 1977 season. They had been led by one of the greatest scorers of all time for the past 11 years, in George Gervin, but the team had never made it past the second round, and were coming off their first losing season since Gervin's arrival. The Spurs had a new coach in Cotton Fitzsimmons, and along with Gervin, they featured an aging Artis Gilmore and a backcourt of Johnny Moore and Mike Mitchell, as Mitchell would lead the team in scoring this year, the first time since '76 that Gervin didn't lead the team. Robertson would come off the bench as a rookie, but would be an important part of the rotation, as he would still finish second on the team in assists and steals in just about 21 minutes per game. Even in a bench role, Robertson would crack at least 20 points in 4 games, along with 2 double-doubles, as one was with rebounds and one with assists. And on the defensive end, he would have 8 games with at least 4 steals. The Spurs hovered around 500 all year, and even though they improved from last year, they would still only finish 41-41 to enter the playoffs as a 7 seed, where they were met by another great scorer in Alex English and the Denver Nuggets. However, Robertson was injured and would miss the entire 5-game series, which the Nuggets would win, as San Antonio allowed nearly 121 points per game. And for the regular season, Robertson averaged about 9 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1.5 steals per game. But the end of an era in San Antonio was much closer than most expected. Gervin and the Spurs were feuding all offseason over a potential bench role for Gervin going into '86, which led to him missing practices. So on October 25th, he was traded to Chicago for forward Dave Greenwood. But then in December, they unexpectedly lost another star, as Moore contracted desert fever, which led to him losing 30 pounds and missing the rest of the season, as he would never be the same player again. But this did present opportunity for Robertson, as he had to take on a larger role and would excel, as he played and started in all 82 games while upping his numbers across the board, as he would be second on the team in scoring and first in steals on a career-high 51.4% shooting, which led to him being voted the first most improved player in NBA history during the award's inaugural season. He would have 68 games in double figures, 16 double-doubles, and 3 triple-doubles, as well as a career-high 41 points in a December 21st win versus Denver, as he would also earn his first career All-Star selection and be voted second team All-NBA. But his improved offense wouldn't be the high point of his year. It would be his defense. He would finish with the 13th best defensive rating in the league, but largely because of his league-leading and NBA record 301 steals this season, for an average of 3.67 per game. He would be named Defensive Player of the Year, becoming the second guard to win the award after Arkansas alum Sidney Moncrief. And there was no better example of his all-around ability to impact a game than on February 18th, 1986, when he became the first, and still the only guard, to record a quadruple-double, when he had 20 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, and a career-high 10 steals in a win, as overall he would have 28 games this year with at least 5 steals. But surprisingly, even though he was named the league's best defensive player, he would only be voted second team all-defense, as Moncrief was first team. But the loss of Gervin and Moore hurt the Spurs, as they finished 35-47, but would still get a playoff berth versus the top-seeded Lakers. And the series went about as well as expected, as the Lakers won every game by at least 20, including a 47-point Game 1 win. Robertson would play a solid all-around series, averaging about 5 boards, 6 assists, and 2.5 steals, but but he couldn't get the lid off the basket, as he shot less than 28% for the series. And for the regular season, he averaged about 17 points, 6.5 rebounds, 5 assists, and over 3.5 steals per game. Robertson would sign a 6-year extension in the offseason and go on to have a similar year in '87. This year he would lead the team in scoring. He would be first in assists and steals, and he would again be voted an All-Star, as he would again lead the league in steals and be named first team All-Defense, as well as finish second in DPOY voting. The team continued to deteriorate, as Mitchell missed nearly half the year with knee issues and would also never again be the same player. Additionally, the Spurs made an early season trade when they sent rookie Kevin Duckworth to the Blazers for rookie Walter Berry, who would end up becoming the team's second leading scorer. Robertson would hit double figures in 69 games with 10 double-doubles and 1 triple-double. And on the defensive end, he would have 23 games with at least 5 steals and tie his career high with 10 steals along with 30 points in a November 22nd win versus the Clippers. The Spurs had moved on from Fitzsimmons prior to the season and replaced him with Bob Weiss, but under Weiss they would go 28-54 and miss the playoffs, as Robertson would average about 17.5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals per game. The Spurs made a good offseason acquisition in trading for Frank Brickowski, as he, Robertson, and Barry would all put up at least 16 points per game. Robertson would have arguably the best year of his career, as he put up career highs in scoring and assists, while again averaging at least 3 steals per game. He would have 47 games with at least 20 points, 25 double-doubles, and 2 triple-doubles, as he would be named to his 3rd consecutive All-Star team. He would have 17 games with at least 5 steals, en route to being voted 2nd team All-Defense and finishing 4th in DPOY voting. But there was some dysfunction on the team this year involving Robertson, which was one of the first examples of his short temper that would follow him his whole career. According to Brickowski, during the preseason, Robertson would take down Barry at a team hotel, which led to Barry punching Robertson. Brickowski thought the fight was over, only to later see them fighting again in the hallway, with Barry chasing Robertson with a butter knife. And maybe this was something the two got past quickly, or maybe it was something that affected their attitude and chemistry. But the Spurs continued to struggle, as they would finish at 31-51. But in a 23-team league, that was enough for a playoff berth versus the defending champion Lakers. And just like 2 years prior, it would end in a Lakers sweep. Robertson would have a great series, putting up over 23 points, 9 assists, and 3 steals per game on over 56% shooting, including 34 points and a postseason career-high 6 steals in Game 1, and a postseason career-high 12 assists to go along with 28 points in Game 2. But for the regular season, he averaged about 19.5 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals per game. Robertson was on to the 3rd coach of his career, as the Spurs had hired Larry Brown going into the '89 season. Brown and Barry would butt heads from day one, as Barry only lasted about 2 months under Brown and would be traded before the season started. Robertson would put in another great year, as he again averaged 3 steals while being one of the team's top scorers, rebounders, and distributors. However, he would fall to 2nd on the team in scoring behind a great rookie year from Willie Anderson. Robertson would fail to make an All-Star team, but would still be voted 2nd team All-Defense. He would have 12 double-doubles and 2 triple-doubles, and record his 3rd career 10-steal game in a January 11th loss to Houston. But he would also miss 17 games this year, and like Barry, he would feud with Brown, as the two needed to be separated during a mid-season argument, an argument that was likely partially fueled by the frustration that comes with going 21-61. And for the regular season, Robertson would average about 17.5 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals per game. And going into 1990, the Spurs would be welcoming their future franchise legend, who would lead a franchise turnaround, but Robertson would be no part of that. Before the '89 playoffs were even over, Robertson and Brickowski were traded to Milwaukee for Terry Cummings, as the relationship between Robertson and Brown had gone sour. But perhaps they also felt that bringing in Cummings, who was an ordained minister, would be a better mentor for their new star rookie, who was also religious, than the more hot-headed Robertson. Robertson would again find his career overlapping with Moncrief, as he was brought in to help fill the hole left by the recently retired guard. Robertson would be half of a good defensive backcourt duo alongside Jay Humphries. He would finish as the team's 3rd leading scorer behind Humphries and star 6th man Ricky Pierce, as the slower-paced Bucks offense would lead to less shots for Robertson. However, he would shoot over 50% for the first time in 5 years. He would finish 2nd in assists and would also tie for the team lead in rebounding with a career-high 6.7 per game. But he would have a down year by his standards in the steal department, with just 2.6 per game. However, he would still be top 5 in the league. He would have 18 double-doubles and 2 triple-doubles, and record a career-high 16 rebounds in a January 16th win versus Golden State. as well as a career-high 17 assists in a February 6th win versus Boston. His first year in Milwaukee would see him finish top 15 in defensive rating, as he would also finish tied for 5th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. This would be the first season of Robertson's career finishing with a winning record, as Milwaukee went 44-38 and would get a first-round matchup versus Chicago. Robertson would have a good series, as he would put up 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals in Game 1, then 14 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals in Game 2. But Game 3 would be his best, as with the Bucks facing elimination and Jordan dropping 48 points, Robertson helped will the Bucks to a win, with a postseason career-high 38 points on over 66% shooting, with 8 rebounds and 7 assists. But the Bucks would get blown out in Game 4, as Robertson had 20, but shot just 7 of 20 from the field. And for the regular season, Robertson put up about 14 points, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 2.5 steals per game, as he was voted second team all-defense. The Bucks looked the same going into the 91 season, as Humphries and Robertson continued to provide Milwaukee with one of the better backcourts in the league, with Robertson finishing second on the team in assists, as well as recording his 5th and final season averaging at least 3 steals per game. He would have 15 double-doubles, 3 triple-doubles, and record his final career 10-steal game in a November 19th win versus Utah, as overall he would have 30 games with at least 5 steals. He would have the best defensive rating of his career, as he finished 12th in the league, while being voted to his final All-Star game and final first-team All-Defense, and also finishing 3rd in DPOY voting. But with the Bucks sitting at 30-20 on February 15th, they would ship their star 6th man to the Sonics for Dale Ellis, as it didn't appear they would be able to come to an agreement on a contract extension. Ellis was a great replacement at 6th man, leading the team in scoring. However, he would go down with 9 games left in the season, as Milwaukee went 18-14 to finish the year at 48-34, and they would get a first-round matchup with Philly, but they would still be without Ellis. Robertson would again have a great series, leading the team with nearly 24 points and 3 steals per game on nearly 60% shooting, to go along with 6 rebounds and 5 assists. But the Sixers' offense was too much, as Milwaukee was swept, and for the regular season, Robertson put up about 13 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 3 steals per game. The Bucks had brought in a 36-year-old Moses Malone during the offseason and would get a full year out of Dale Ellis. And these two, along with Humphries and Robertson, would each average at least 12 points per game. But Robertson would see a noticeable dip in his numbers this year, as he put up his lowest averages since his rookie season and would shoot a career-low 43% from the field. He would still have 52 games in double figures, but recorded just 3 double-doubles and no triple-doubles. The Bucks were still in the playoff hunt late in the year, sitting at 29-35, but they would collapse and lose 16 of their final 18 games to finish the year at 31-51 and miss the playoffs. And Robertson would average about 12.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. Robertson began the 93 season as a Buck, but they looked a lot different, as Humphries and Ellis were both gone, and Malone would only play 11 games, as the Bucks were in a full rebuild and going in a much younger direction. Robertson's numbers continued to drop, and at the trade deadline, he would be sent to Detroit for forward Orlando Woolridge. But this would be where his career and life really began to unravel. Robertson would play 30 games for a Detroit team heading towards their own rebuild, and would start 22 of them, as his numbers were up slightly from Milwaukee, yet still well below his usual numbers, as the highlight of this season would be him and Shaq getting into a fight during a game. But a big reason for Robertson's decline was that he was dealing with a bad back that was severely limiting his mobility, and after his trade to Detroit, the 22-29 Pistons would go 18-10, to finish 40-42, but still miss the playoffs. And for the regular season, he put up about 9 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals per game. Robertson would sit out the next 2 years due to his back, and the beginning of his injury rehab couldn't have gone worse, as in early November of 93, Pistons Director of Player Personnel, Billy McKinney, allegedly questioned the severity of Robertson's back injury and suspended Robertson for missing practices and rehab sessions, which led to teammates needing to stop Robertson from strangling McKinney. Then over the course of the next 2 years, Robertson would deal with a lot of legal troubles off the court, with the biggest being a 1995 burglary and assault charge for breaking into the house of and attacking an ex-girlfriend. And another assault accusation came up on October 30th, 1995, just days before he was slated to play his first game in over 2 years. Robertson was a member of the Toronto Raptors for their inaugural 96 season, and was slated to play his first game on November 3rd, just days after his assault accusation. The league had never taken any disciplinary actions on Robertson during his run-ins with the law over the course of his career, so he would be in the starting lineup for the Raptors' first game against New Jersey, where he would even record the first points in Raptors history on a three-pointer, as he would eventually put up a season-high 30 points. The Raptors were understandably bad and would finish at 21-61, but Robertson had a very respectable comeback year for someone who hadn't played an NBA game in over 2 years. His numbers would look almost identical to his 93 season, but he would shoot more efficiently and play in 77 games, while again leading the team in steals. But this would be his final NBA season, and it would end with him averaging about 9.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals per game. Alvin Robertson made plenty of his own mistakes during his playing career and after, which he admitted to and held himself accountable. But the nail in the coffin, which has led to the NBA omitting him any chance they get, turned out to be a made-up story, which essentially ruined his name. And even though it was disproved, the damage was done, and he gets little to no recognition today as one of the greatest defenders in NBA history. He still sits 11th all-time in steals as one of 13 players with over 2,000 in their career, and in his 10 years on the court, he made life miserable on whoever he was matched up with, as he was a player that never seemed to get tired. Whether it was the first possession or overtime, he would defend like his life depended on it. He definitely benefited from the ability to hand check and was often too aggressive, averaging 3.5 fouls for his career. But at his best, he could slash through the defense with ease, find the open man, and rebound better than a lot of front court players. And although he might be the forgotten star of the legendary '84 draft, you can bet everyone who played against him will never forget. But that's it for today's episode on Alvin Robertson. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. If you liked it, check out this one on his Milwaukee teammate, or this one on his Rookie of the Year teammate in Toronto. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.